Well, there were some brothers who were already thinking of studying in Freiburg when I was a student brother. And so I began to hear about this Belgian Dominican who was writing very interesting things. And it's one of the reasons I went on to use a scholarship I had won to study French, so that I could read the moral theology of this Belgian Dominican, never thinking that I would ever study with him. There was one first effort that maybe sent me to do a year of study with him when he was still teaching. But instead I was sent to the north of Mexico and spent a year working in our parish there. Then later, when I was sent on after 3 years of priesthood, sent on to get the doctorate, by then one of his books had been translated, The Sources of Christian Ethics, which I had encountered in Paris earlier and tried to struggle through with my just beginning French. And I saw right away that here was someone who was reading Aquinas in light of his biblical and patristic sources. And in many ways, he had come to the conclusions similar to Alistair MacIntyre. Now, I think it is not an exaggeration to say that when Father Vincent Guaiardo put After Virtue in my hands in 1984, it changed the course of my theological and philosophical studies. And Father Pinckaers, it was very clear to see that he was doing something theologically that was parallel to what Alistair MacIntyre was doing. And both MacIntyre and Pinckaers were, in their own ways, developing insights that were even earlier expressed by Elizabeth Anscombe, that the way in which philosophical ethics had been divided between questions of whether the act is useful or whether you should follow rules, so whether morality was about following rules or about utility. Catholic theology, in the aftermath of debates over Humanae Vitae, had broken up into these two opposing camps that were very similar. Proportionalists, who were basically looking at the consequences of an act, or the new natural lawyers that were basically looking at formal rules, and morality was seen to be about those two things. What Father Pinckaers and what Alistair MacIntyre both intuited and discovered is that actually is from both schools are following an impoverished view of the moral life, and that you have to return to the great questions of human nature, human thriving, and the acts that will promote human thriving. So Father Pinckaers, who was a shy man, in many ways a timid man, was already in the 50s, very quietly looking at the sources of Thomas Aquinas and of moral theology, and returning to those sources and to the great questions of what does it mean to live a human life? What is human flourishing? What is human happiness? And what does the gospel call us to in the Sermon on the Mount, in the Pauline letters? And that was attractive. I saw that, having been raised in the midst, as a theologian, in the midst of those debates between proportionalism and the new natural law, I saw the return to virtue as the way out. And it's a return to virtue that is rooted in the return to the great questions of human life. What does it mean to live a human life? What are the traits of character and the actions that promote human flourishing? And he promoted that theologically, just as Miss Anscombe and Alistair MacIntyre had done in ethics. He also, I arrived on the scene here as a visiting doctoral student the year that Father Pinckaers had retired and lost his assistant. So I was able to be his unofficial assistant and learn his methods. And one of the things he did to stay in shape and to clear his mind was to hike. And he would take me on these hikes. I had no idea I would ever come back here, have the post that he had for 25 years here. But I think he somehow intuited this. And so he introduced me into his life, his biography, coming from a small Belgian village, having been sent during the Second World War to a boarding school, having tried to be a seminarian and been, I think in many ways, shocked by the poverty of the theological instruction he was receiving. and then being introduced to a moment of renewal in the Belgian province that was that first wave of the ressourcement theology with Father Louis Charlier, and seeing theological formation that was rooted in the reading of the Fathers of the Church, in the reading of Scripture, and in Eucharistic adoration. He makes it very clear it was an encounter of this holistic vision where the Scriptures were read, where the Fathers were read in the context of adoration of the Eucharist, all of which drew him to leave the seminary and join the Dominicans. And it was being actually initiated into those, not just the ideas of Father Pinckaers, but the practices of Father Pinckaers. His way of living the religious life have influenced me and stayed with me, and I hope I can transmit them, share them to the next generation.